Exclusively designed by Nixie Nax Arts, we bring you our second exclusive mat with the colossal Rainbow Neos taking on Red Eyes Dragoon, using both Dark Magician and Red Eyes alongside Elemental Hero Neos and of course Rainbow Dragon. Produced by Venom Battle Gear, this is an exclusive mat only available from their site. You can get this mat both with and without zones, and it can be shipped worldwide. What are you waiting for? Visit venombattlegear.co.uk to get your own exclusive Rainbow Neos versus Red Eyes Dragoon playmat. What's up YouTube, Dow here from Zephyr Wargames. And let me be the first to say welcome to October 2020. It is now the 1st of October, and I thought starting a new month, especially a spooky month, I will start off with a new series. Now in this new series I'm calling it Yugioh 101. Now I know there's a load of them out there of how to play the game, what to do, but these are going to be specifically designed and catered for by you guys. So this first one I'm going to be talking about side decks. So this is Yugioh 101 side decking. So what I'm going to do is go through in each one of these 101 videos is any requests you have about, you know, guys, I don't know, like you see loads of the best side decks around or the best side deck cards, but not a lot of people actually explain what is a side deck, why do we have a side deck, how do we build a side deck, and what dictates how it goes. So I am going to take you through the what is a side deck, why do we side deck, when do we side deck, and how do you decide. There you go, nice little, very, very poor like dad joke level there. But when I say how do you decide, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you through like how do you decide what to take in, what to put out, how do you decide to what you put into your side deck as well. And this is basically going to be a run through of everything you need to know about side decking in Yu-Gi-Oh! So, before we get started, please, as always guys, smash the like button, hit the notification bell and subscribe. If you show so much support, if videos like this get at least 50 likes, I'll continue to do this. And all you need to do is put in the requests in the comments below, anything that you need to know, anything you have a question about, whether it be spell speeds, whether it be the trap speeds, whether it be monster effects, whether it be building a deck, anything like that that you want to know the 101s of Yu-Gi-Oh! About, please put them in the comments, I'll be more than happy to help out. Now, let's get started with the first point. What is a side deck? So the side deck is a 15 card extra deck or side deck that you can put and side into your deck during games or before games 2 and before games 3. It is basically a 15 card side deck that can contain either main deck cards or extra deck cards, as long as it does not exceed 15 cards and it is all legal cards to play, that you are able to swap in and out of your deck for the same number in order to give you an advantage going into games 2 and 3. Remember, you actually spend more time playing the game in your side deck than you do out of it, because you'll always be playing at least one game in your main deck without any side cards involved, and you'll at least be playing game 2, if not game 3, using side deck cards. So it is very, very important that you always turn up to a tournament, whether it be high levels or even locals, with a side deck, just so you get to learn the cards that you want to be taking out against certain matchups and cards you want to be putting in against certain matchups as well. So that was the what is a side deck, very short, sweet and simple bit on that one. Why do we side deck? I've pretty much touched on that as well, but the reason we side deck is to give you an advantage against your opponent, because they might be playing a specific deck that your deck is generally weak against. So you need an ability or a time where you can take out the cards that aren't so good for your deck against that opponent and put in cards that are. When do we side deck? Again, already really touched onto this, but you cannot side deck during game 1. Your side deck is kept completely separate. You play with your main deck the way you have built it, and then during games 2 or 3, depending if you get that far, you will then side in the same amount of cards that you side out. So you can't put all 15 cards in and your deck still becomes then a 55 card deck. No, that's not how it works. You would have to put in the same amount of cards as you take out. So if you put one extra deck card in, you take one extra deck card out. If you put 5 main deck cards in, you take 5 main card decks out. Your extra deck must always be the same number you started with, ideally 15, at the start of every single one of your rounds. One very important tip to remember is, no matter what time, whether you finish your game in time or whether you finish it a little bit late, always remember to unside. You will be surprised the amount of times people have started their round 1 of their game, game 1 of their round 2, and then realise partway through they've just drawn into one of their side deck cards because they forgot to unside. Now, not only will that result in you losing that game because technically your deck is not in a correct fashion, but it can also cause you even more issues because maybe the side deck cards you've left in by accident aren't going to help you in your matchup. So always remember to spend at least 30 seconds just taking out your side deck cards to make sure you are prepared for your next round before it gets started. Now, the most important point, and a lot of questions that I get asked about this, is about how do you build and how do you decide what you are siding in and what you are siding out. Let's start with how you build a side deck. So a side deck, like I said, you really need to adapt it personally. Now, there are a lot of side deck cards that are generic that can float between a lot of side decks, but ultimately it comes down to A, the deck you are playing, and B, the decks you are facing. Now, for example, you don't want to be playing Floodgate Trap, something like Summon Limit, if your deck is designed to special summon multiple times in a turn. So that is a very, very important point. You do not want to be putting a Nibiru in against a control deck because they're not going to summon more than 5 turns. You're just going to have dead cards sitting around. So, first of all, decide what your deck is. If you play an OTK deck, the first point I will mention to you guys is you will probably need something in your side deck that is going to allow you to go first. Sometimes a lot of good players actually go, right, my opponent's playing an OTK deck, I'm going to make them go first. So what do you want to do? If you can't set up an OTK board that is going to be able to protect you for a turn, you need to put in side deck cards. So for example, stuff like Dinos, which are very, very better now because they have an option to go first. But previously when it was Dino OTK, when you were looking at Crusadia OTK, when you were looking at Mathmech OTK, they need to have the ability to go first. So sometimes a lot of people are putting in the Artifact engine because that is a out and out lockdown. Sometimes people put in Floodgates just to slow their opponent down, and then as long as they can survive the turn, they can then OTK the turn after. If you are a go first deck, you do need to make sure that you're going to be putting in anything that might stop your opponent. So if your opponent is an OTK deck, then you want to make sure you put in combo stoppers, combo blockers, anything like a Nibiru's, Imperms, Ashes, Ogres, anything that you don't already have in the main deck that is going to slow the combos down. So when it comes to side decks, what I very, very rarely or very importantly push to you guys is this. Yes, okay, you could look at a side deck that someone used at their locals and go, right, I'm going to copy that exactly. Remember, your locals is not going to guarantee to be the same as that person's locals. So, first off, what deck are you playing? If you're playing OTK, construct your side deck. Not all 15 cards, but a small proportion of your side deck preparing for that. Then, put into your side deck something that is generic. So, if the current meta decks are around, and a bunch of decks around are weak to stuff like Artifact Lancia, or something like Ash Blossom, or Imperm that you don't already have in your main deck, then go with that. Always go for the generic cards that are going to hit as many decks as possible that you can possibly think of. Another tip is always have some form of back row hate in your deck. So you want to make sure that either in your main deck or your side deck you have some form of way of dealing with a control deck, because you never know, one cheeky control deck will actually win a tournament because people are unprepared for it. The exact same with an OTK deck. If your opponent is not prepared, or if the people at your locals are not prepared for an OTK deck, you will win on that basis alone, let alone if you played amazingly or not. So side deck is incredibly important. Now, once you've built your side deck, once you've taken into consideration what you're going to be facing at your locals, what your deck needs in the side games and its worst matchups, and then finally the generic cards that are going to give you a wide range of interruptions depending on what your locals will be based on, then you'll be able to move into the next stage. Now, the next stage is how do you decide what you take in and what you take out of your main deck or extra deck. Now on this one I'm only going to focus on the main deck because it's very rare that you actually side in extra deck cards. That comes down to more specific lineups of plays and more specific formats. So, how do you decide what to take out? Well, number one, the first point you should be looking at above anything else is if you ever have a dead card in your deck once you play game one. So for example, if you main deck Nibiru and you are playing against Altergeist, Nibiru is the first card you take out of your main deck and opens up a spot for your side deck engine. Purely because you know that 9 times out of 10 an Altergeist player is not going to make 5 summons in their single turn. Unless they're playing Numerons, but even then that's a little bit sketchy that they'll guarantee to hit a Nibiru before they stop on 4 summons if they're smart enough. Secondly, if you are playing a very, very back row hate deck and all you have are Twin Twisters, MSTs, Cosmic Silence, anything like that, and your opponent is combo based and not playing a single back row card, take them out. So straight away you want to look at your deck and say, right, what cards in my deck are no use against this matchup? Now the more you practice, the more you'll know like that, and instead of taking 5 to 10 minutes to side deck, you're actually going to be able to side deck within 3 minutes, if not less, and you will be prepared, ready to face the matchup. Then what you want to be looking at is what you're going to be putting into your side deck. Now exactly that, the reason we have side decks is to give your deck an additional advantage or an additional boost against your opponent. Now there does come a lot of strategy in this point because sometimes people actually play to side for the side. So if they are expecting their opponent to put in cards to deal with them, so for example if I'm playing a control deck and I'm expecting my opponent to be putting in Lightning Storms, MSTs, Twin Twisters, I'm going to try and put in cards that are going to counteract that. So if I'm playing a control deck, then I'm going to be putting in cards like anti-spells, maybe putting stuff in like Solemn Judgments, anything that is going to allow me to protect my back row, and I'm going to play a bit more conservatively as well. So there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration. You also need to make sure that your side deck is going to hurt your opponent a heck of a lot more than it does you. Sometimes there are cards you're like, alright, this might actually hurt me, but it's going to hurt him a hell of a lot more. Or there'll be cards where you're like, right, this doesn't hurt me at all, great, straight in, let's go. So you've got to be very, very consistent. You've got to think about what you're going to be putting in. You've got to make sure that every card you put in is going to give you an advantage. If you didn't play well in game one or you didn't draw the card you needed in game one, it doesn't mean you have to ram your side deck into the deck as fast as you possibly can. Sometimes your deck might already be ready for the matchup and wasn't ready to actually face in game one. One other very important note to mention as well is you want to make sure that the consistency of your deck remains the same. Now what I mean by this is at no point, or at a very, very rare point, do you ever want to go 15 side deck cards, boom, 15 cards out. You very ever rarely want to do that because the idea is that the 15 side deck cards are going to be balanced. They're not going to disrupt the natural flow of your deck. They're not going to disrupt the natural plays of your deck, and you're actually going to be able to continue get your consistency of your combos going or your control going without disrupting the flow. Now there are times where you will go, oh, I prepared for this matchup, my whole entire extra deck is ready to deal with Dogmatica Invoked, it's going to go in. Now, again, that's part of building the side deck, because what you want to make sure is you don't want to build your side deck for one particular deck, because trust me, if you do that at a big event, the chances are you're going to face everything but. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. Back in regional, one of our first regionals we went to, Michael played Mermail Atlanteans. He had the majority of his side deck prepared, ready to face Cosmo. Out of 11 rounds, he did not face a single Cosmo matchup. So half of his side deck was pretty much dead. Now, obviously, he did really, really well. His deck was incredibly built well as well. So it's just something to keep in mind. You want to make sure that your side deck can affect as many decks as possible rather than focusing on one core one. Even in a spiral format where it was 98% spirals, I'm pretty sure the side decks were a little bit spicier as well, and none were identical. You'll have identical cards because there will always be that single card that is insanely powerful against the majority of meta decks in that format, and you'll be prepared and ready to go. So that is pretty much it, a short, sweet, simple video 101 on Yu-Gi-Oh! Side decking. What is a side deck? When do you side deck? Why do we side deck? And how do you decide what you put into your deck and what you take out of it, and how you build a side deck? Now, it's all well and good, like I said, finding examples online and using that, but you've got to make sure that it is tailored for your deck and it is tailored for your locals, and more importantly than anything. My biggest advice before you go away from this end of the video is to make sure that your side deck is built to disrupt as generically as possible. And if you know your locals is very popular for a lot of people playing control decks, then you can focus a little bit more on that. If you think that your locals is going to be focused on playing combos, then you can focus a little bit more on that. But make sure at least 3 play sets, so 9 cards from your side deck, are going to be able to deal on a generic basis. And that's it, guys. I hope you liked this type of video. I hope it was something a little bit new, something a little bit different. If you did, please smash the like button, show the support for the video. If this gets 50 likes, I will continue to do a series like this, and I'll try and add more effects to it. I'll try and update the quality as well, and we'll try and make sure that it is as informative as possible for you guys. And I really hope that this video has helped you put a side deck together for your locals events coming up as well, whether it be remote duels, online duels, or of course physical duels with the right protection in place. Thanks so much for watching. Again, as always, like, comment, subscribe, share. Stay safe and happy dueling. Exclusively designed by Nixie Nax Arts, we bring you our second exclusive mat with the colossal Rainbow Neos taking on Red Eyes Dragoon, using both Dark Magician and Red Eyes alongside Elemental Hero Neos and of course Rainbow Dragon. Produced by Venom Battle Gear, this is an exclusive mat only available from their site. You can get this mat both with and without zones, and it can be shipped worldwide. What are you waiting for? Visit venombattlegear.co.uk to get your own exclusive Rainbow Neos versus Red Eyes Dragoon playmat.